Hi there, my name is Hua, and I'm on a journey studying neurology. And I realized something. Most of us know our brain controls every aspect of our daily life, but not many of us know how it works. This is why I want to start this channel to break it down. We will explore topics like the brain anatomy, its structure, and what happens in conditions like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease, and why you would react when you're under stress. So let's make the brain anatomy or neurology personal and practical. Let's explore together. So lesson 1. So we're gonna have a look at the brain structure. So recently we did a Build a Brain project, and his name is Bob, and you can see the colorful brain structure Bob has, and actually we all have this structure. So this is the front of the person. This is a frontal view. So this is a forehead of Bob. The blue part is called the frontal lobe. Frontal lobe is kind of a big deal because this part is controlling very important high order thinking, like making plans, follow through your plans, logic, reasoning, things like that. And this area is also very important because it hosts the Broca's area. Broca's area is known to be in charge of speech production. Like right now I'm talking, and my Broca's area is hard at work in producing the speech. And you can see this part in the new, this magenta color. It's called the central sulcus. The central sulcus separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe, the green color. The second lobe is called the parietal lobe. Parietal lobe is the one in charge of integrating or synthesizing all the sensory information. So this line that separates the central sulcus, the part before it is called the precentral gyrus. This part is in charge of the motor, so any parts in the body that involves the moving of your body parts, like the tongue, the things like that, those jaws. This is controlled by the precentral gyrus. And after that is the postcentral gyrus. And this one is in charge of the sensory part. Okay? And the parietal lobe is posterior to the frontal lobe. Posterior actually means behind it. And we can also say the frontal lobe is anterior to the parietal lobe. And the next one in the purple color is what we call the occipital lobe. Occipital lobe is located at the back of your head, and this part is in charge of the synthesizing or integrating the visual information, such as the shapes, colors, and the sizes, and this is under the charge of the occipital lobe. And this beautiful orange colored structure is called the cerebellum. Cerebellum is controlling the coordination and the balance. So why we consider this part is very important, because like if a person drinks wine, and what happens is it first affects the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe, and then you can see if it's not a huge amount, it starts to affect people's decision making. So it first affects the frontal lobe. Then you will see if that person continues to drink, it will affect the person's ability to control its movements and balance. And you can see he's wobbling when he walks. And this is because his cerebellum is affected. And then we can see this brown colored thing. This structure is called the brain stem. The brain stem is the part that connects the brain with the spine, and it controls very important function like breathing. And if something happens to the brain stem, and that person's life may be seriously affected, or it can be fatal. And the yellow part, as you can see, is called the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is inferior to the parietal lobe and posterior to the frontal lobe, which means it's below the parietal lobe and behind the frontal lobe. And why is this area very, very important in our speech and language pathology? Because this area hosts the Wernicke's area. Wernicke's area is in charge of language comprehension. Like after you hear somebody saying something and you cannot comprehend it, you can hear they talking, but you cannot comprehend. You don't understand. You couldn't interpret the meaning. And the blue part before the Wernicke's area is called the Halsey's gyrus. This is in charge of the language perception or receiving the auditory information by the brain. So as you can see, this is the first part that's affecting the hearing. If something happens and that person would have trouble at this baseline when we receive auditory information. And you can see a person's brain has left and the right hemisphere. And what separates the two is called the longitudinal, the cerebral fissure. And this is something that basically cuts or separates, we don't want to cut, but something separates the left and the right hemisphere. So this is a brain structure in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you next time. We will talk about why do we have fight or flight and what happens when we experience that. See you next time.